right. We are ready to go here on a Friday, the NBA Tip-Off Show powered by WagerTalk.com. So could you come up with two worst games here on a Friday? We're going to do our best to try to make heads or tails of what we got rolling on here in these game sixes tonight. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a game seven before it's all said and done. But I do know the two guys here today are here to help you guys make some smart sports investing decisions, as the one and only Teddy Covers in the house, as is RC. Ronald Cabang ready to go at UCapper Sports, at Teddy_Covers. Make sure you are telling them on X here, guys. Shout out to the chat room. And gentlemen, we get to start off with just one of the most exhilarating games of the evening here, of the entire playoffs. Orlando, will they hold serve at home here, tie this thing up at 3-3 and get us a game seven, or will Cleveland prevail? And Teddy, lucky you're up first here at this monstrosity of a game. The total, though, Teddy, is the most interesting part. I thought for sure this thing might close under 200 points. It's hovering right around that. What do you think the best way to approach this game is tonight?
I bet Cleveland plus the points. I think the Cavs are the better of the two teams. And it's just that simple. And having escaped Game 3, and Donovan Mitchell struggled all series. In the fourth quarter of Game 5, he put in 14 points. And in my mind, that's a real positive sign for him moving forward. Don't know if Jared Allen's going to play. The money has come a little bit towards the Cavs, makes me think there's a chance. But whether Allen plays or not, I think Cleveland is the better of these two teams. Now, there are lots of issues with the Cavs on the highway. They did not play their best basketball on the road down the stretch. They got bombed in the first two road games of this series. That being said, closeout game, you read the quotes out of that locker room, that's hungry. You know, this is not, they've been in games like this before, unlike Orlando. Got a really good Donovan Mitchell quote, got to do it again on the road. We won at home. We took care of business at home. We did our job. This doesn't prove anything. We haven't proven anything. We haven't done anything. Got to go down there and handle business. And when it comes to elimination games, this is one time where experience, in my mind, really does matter. The Magic have not been there before. They got three starters, 22 years of age or younger, who are all playing in their first playoff series. I'll give Orlando, they've done nothing but make money for me this year and last year. Not tonight, though. Cavs are past for this better.
Yeah, I'm with Teddy there, RC. I can't imagine anything worse than another game between these two teams and us being forced to try and make a decision here. But if you were approaching this game, gun to your head here, would you look total? Would you look side? I think a lot of guys in the chat already, I think, are leaning under in this one here. How would you approach this game?
Yeah, this series specifically, just from a matchup perspective, we know they're slow-paced teams. This last game, this is actually the first game this series the Cavs hit over the century mark, and they won, right? 3 of these 5 games. They're obviously up 3-2 on the series, but one thing that I looked at from the Magic perspective is just how dominant they've been as home favorites. Not only in the playoffs, right? They beat the Cavs by 38. In Game 3, 23 in Game 4, but throughout the whole season, the regular season as well, 23-4, straight up 21-6 against the spread as home favorites this season, including those 2 playoff games. Initially, I was with Teddy here. I think it's a Cavs or pass type of game here. But one thing that I looked at is the last 3 games, and how the Magic have seemed to really figure things out from an offensive perspective. Obviously, they're not like scoring like a ton of points, Game 3 and Game 4 they did. Game 5 they only scored 103, ended up losing by 1 point. They did cover that spread, but they're getting to the free throw line, right? They're limiting offensive rebounds. They're killing it in the mid range too. So if they continue to do that, they have a chance to win and cover this game. Historical stuff though, right? Not only to mention what Teddy said about experience, right? The player experience, the how important that is, but I was just looking at like historical situations, looking at the first round series, teams up, road teams specifically, road teams up 3-2 in a series, in the round 1 series. Since the 2001 playoffs, 32-13 straight up, 33-12 against the spread. That's a 73.3% cover rate that backs the Cavs here. To me, there was just a lot of things that are kind of going against each other for me to really pinpoint a bet on this game from either a side perspective or whatever. But the more I dove into it, I think one way that you can back this game, and it doesn't matter who wins or covers, is to take the Cavs team total under. They showed in game 1 and 2 that they don't need to score a lot of points to win or even cover that game, right? They scored, 96 and 97, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. 97 in game 1, 96 in game 2. They won both of those games by double digits, right? So I think this is a situation where if the Magic somehow show up and win and cover this game, they'll probably play some solid defense, get Cleveland under their team total, or the Cleveland defense shows up with Jared Allen or whatever it might be, and they'll be able to limit the Magic offense, but still struggle offensively. Because really, if you look at it from the second half of the season, they've really been struggling on the offensive side of the ball in general. So you take that inconsistencies and maybe take that bet and not really care who wins or covers.
I kind of like it. I mean, I'm seeing 98.5. I'm seeing 101.5 for Orlando here. And Teddy, I think you're spot on. Jared Allen, Paolo had an absolutely monster game there, but no Jared Allen. They had to put Mobley on him to try and cover, and that didn't work out all that well. It feels like a lot of this is going to hinge here on whether or not Jared Allen can go, and I think it's almost a no-brainer. If he goes, does this line move? Is he worth a half a point? He is in your mind? So it is.
We'll see Cleveland money
sooner.
if Allen plays. Yeah, if you want, I don't think it goes higher if he doesn't play. I'm looking at a split line right now. You can lay 3.5. You can take 4. And then multiple books looking at the WagerTalk free live odds screen have a 3.5 or a 4. So it's not like there's one book you have to find. Both lines are widely available right now. That said, if Allen doesn't play, I would expect to see. I don't expect to see a whole lot happen. I think this is an Allen's not playing line. If he does play, we could see 3s on this game easily for Orlando. But in my mind, Allen's a big issue. The biggest issue in my mind for this entire series, Cleveland's role players have not hit shots. Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, Georges Niang, Sam Merrill, all of them shooting less than 40% from the floor, all of them shooting 30% or lower from three-point range. And one thing the Cavs have been really good at this year was, they had a bunch of games where the role players just buried threes. We haven't seen any of the role players get hot in this series. Maybe it's time tonight.
Could very well be. For those of you in the chat, by the way, 102.5 first half total. If that was the direction you were thinking of going, 2.5 right now. The Cavs are getting in the first half. Magic were pretty good for a portion of this season, early in games, especially at home. But this one is going to be interesting here. Will experience outweigh the youth here of Orlando? Teddy seems to think so. And RC looking towards maybe a team total. Might not be the bad way to look in that one. Big shout out to Eric Cheshire Cat in the house here. Catch you slipping. Boko Dano, always a pleasure to see you guys. Kevin Cummings, Titan CT. Make sure you guys hit that thumbs up for us. We certainly appreciate it because we go from a game that, well, we may not get first one to 100 wins to a game where, I don't know, the market seems to think points are not going to come all that easy either. With Dallas at home in front 3-2, 206 right now, 8 for Dallas. It was 7.5, Teddy. It seems to be bouncing back and forth here. Is there a clear path for you for Clippers to win this game outright? Because the market don't seem to think so here.
So I got a bet on Dallas to win the series. I thought Dallas was going to win the series, and obviously sitting at 3-2, returning home and being 8-point favorites tonight, the market expect Dallas to win the series. But the price here isn't right for me to back the Mavs. I don't want to lay 8 in this game. I believe I don't think the Clips are necessarily a team. I mean, I always say when a team's done, they're done. I'm not convinced that the Clips are done, despite what we saw in Game 5, which, easy right side for the clients and I with Dallas in that ball game. But off that blowout loss, we'll see what kind of character the Clips have. That's the bottom line. There have been questions about this team's character. Maybe they don't show. But I'm not comfortable laying 8 here with Dallas. The wrong price for me with this team.
Feels like a lot, doesn't it, RC? Though I mean, it really does. We know Doncic's not 100%. Kyrie's been absolutely phenomenal, but we did see the path for the Clippers right in the last game in Dallas. We saw they're going to have to make some shots early and often. I don't think we're going to get a repeat of, down 20 some odd points there heading into the break. But there is a path for the Clippers here. And I think we'll know it early. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, so from a side perspective, I totally agree with Teddy. I think this is a game where the Mavs winning, but the Clippers keeping it close. One thing that I looked at from a trend perspective, a similar situation as what I looked at with the Magic, first round team up 3-2, but this time in a situation where they're home. They are 15-5 straight up. Right? They're winning these games at a pretty high rate since 2006 playoffs or whatever, but they're not covering 9-11 ATS in that same situation. The under 11-6-2 to the under. One thing that I could look at from a betting perspective in this game is the first half under. Not only that sort of long-term playoff trend or whatever, but the Clippers in general as dogs this season, they tend to be really strong under teams in the first half. 18-4 to the first half under as underdogs so far this season. And that includes, I think, the situation here in the playoffs as well. So that could be a continuing look that you could probably take here. From a side perspective, like I said, I agree with Teddy. I think this is a game that the line is a little bit off. I do think the Mavs do win this game. One thing that I could see the Clippers do successfully is from the three-point line. The thing is that what I'm seeing here is they're shooting the above the break three at a really high percentage, nearly 40%. So the Mavs are giving it up pretty easily. The problem with the Clippers is they're not shooting it a lot, only 20 or so attempts per game. So if they get a little bit more opportunities there and they hit them at the rate that they have been, this is a game where they could keep it close. And that's going to be reliant upon, James Harden and Paul George to get that done. Most of the other guys on the squad are shooting three from the corner. The above the break guys are James Harden and Paul George. So it's going to be up to them. If they make those threes early and often, then they definitely have a chance to win and cover this game. But in my opinion, I think the Mavs defense has just been really strong. And the thing that Dallas has been doing really well is limiting points in the paint, right? So the Clippers are struggling to score in that paint area like efficiently. And that's giving the perimeter defenders opportunity to step up on these 3-point shooters because they know the paint is already getting is already locked down. So in my opinion, there's just too much going on the defensive side for Mavs that is that's limiting the Clippers. I gotta say, from a bet perspective, like I said, first half under, but I think Mavs get it done.
So can you? I know they had a hard that first trend you had, RC. You were breaking up just a little bit. There's a few questions in there on what you were talking about. Can you just repeat that again for them?
Yeah. So home favorites that are up 3-2 in the first round, 15-5 straight up, but just 9-11 against the spread. That's since the 2006 playoffs. So pretty specific trend. Looking at Game 6 specifically with that specific score. 3-2, and then 12-6-2 to the under as well. So defenses tend to show up in these games where they need to get that W.
I think Ralph Teddy on the show yesterday on Wager Talk today, which I'd encourage you guys to check out, talked about some of the trends for Game 6 in the first round with teams, which I thought was interesting here. The total is fascinating to me, Teddy, because we've seen the Clippers score 109 points already. We've seen them score 116 points in games 1 and 4 there. This just feels like, yes, while we're expecting some some defense maybe to show up, they're not going to win a first 1-100 game, are they here? This has got to be an over.
Well, I mean, so let's start with this. Ralph's chart, which you referenced, I just called it up. And the thing that really stood out when you talk about Game 6 home teams, home dogs have been a disaster. 5-24 ATS as home as pick 'em or a dog. So you want to be laying points here. And when you're laying points, it's much closer to 50-50 with the home team favor, just like the trend that Ronald was talking about with the teams 3-2. Of course, if it's Game 6, it has to be 3-2. There's no other series. There's no way the series could be. But that series is pretty close to 50-50. So there aren't a lot of bets I'm going to make based on some trend, at this stage of the campaign. It can give you ammunition when you have an opinion to say, hey, maybe this opinion is pretty good versus, all right, well, maybe it's just an opinion. But from a actual getting money out of your pocket or out of your account and making a bet, I'm never going to look at a chart and say, yeah, this chart says I should make my bet. You handicap the game, then you look at the prevailing trends, and if A and B go together, well, now you got to play.
Yeah.
You agree, RC?
Just to add on to that, I think a lot of people, when we talk about these on these shows, we have to have like these conversation points, right? And trends come up, stats come up, matchups come up. I think from a handicapping perspective, I think the best way to do it is combine all that together. Be a more balanced handicapper instead of just like, oh, this trend is 0-10, so gotta fade that team. I don't think that's how it works. You really got to put everything together. Obviously, we bring these things up. We highlight these things, but they're more conversational pieces. There's more to handicapping than just looking at a trend that's 100% or whatever it is. So I 100% agree with Teddy on calling that out.
I agree too. I'm just looking quick at the first half. 4.5 right now is what the Clippers are getting. 102.5 is the first half total. And the one thing we know, Teddy, is that the Clippers, the tempo got up there when Kawhi has missed games in here. It's been a lot of live by the 3, die by the 3. I mean, I guess I can make the argument that if they're hitting like they did in that Game 4, this thing's flying over 102 points in the first half because what choice do they have? I mean, if you like Dallas, you almost think that, well, if the threes aren't falling for the Clippers, maybe we ain't getting to 100 points in the first half here. How would you correlate early with the Clippers in this game?
The Clips have to score to cover. All right. Clippers correlates in my mind with over. Dallas correlates with under. A modest correlation, but some correlation. That being said, I don't see a lot of pace in this game. The Mavericks defense has been phenomenal. The Clippers defense is no joke. All right. We're talking about two teams. You ask me what's their strength right now, I'll say defense and defense. So unless we see pace, unless we see a foul fest and all these points being scored with the shot clock off, I couldn't look at an over in this game. It's under a pass for me in that regard. And first half under probably makes the most sense of the bunch because you don't have to worry about anything weird happening at the end. That said, I didn't bet it. It's just an opinion.
Right. Yep. No, that's what it's all. That's what it's all about. As you talk them through here, it feels like RC the Clippers. They're better when they're playing from in front. I don't know that if they get behind in this game, there's going to be a whole lot of ability for them to get back here. So, maybe even a second half wager is not a bad idea to approach this as well. You have any feeling first half, second half? Because the Clippers are dead in the water if they're down 10 by the time they go to the break. I think it's over and just lock it up and bye-bye now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the more that we talk about it and the more Teddy, kind of talks about it as well, is this first half under makes a lot of more sense to me. I think they're going to show up defensively and see what happens at halftime. If the Mavs are up at half and you take that first half under instead of the full game, you kind of stay away from like what Teddy said, like the weird stuff that happened towards the end of the game. If the Clippers are down, they're going to push the pace, shoot more threes. If they happen to make them, obviously that it's going to get up and over. And also, these late games fouls, right? If the Cavs are down by like 5-6 points or whatever with a minute or so left, the fouls can come earlier than expected because this is a win or go home type situation. And if they're feeling that pressure, they're going to start fouling early, and we're going to get more opportunities for them to score, and as well as free points from the free throw line. So I think that first half under might be the way to go today.
Yeah, the more we keep talking about it, the more I'm inching closer to hitting the bet button on that, Teddy.
It's funny, Joe, because we talk. But you said something that I disagree with strongly. You said if the Clips are down 10 at the half, they're done. And no, the Clips have got to be. If the Clips are down 20 at the half, they're done. 10-point deficit for that team's nothing. If the Clips fall behind and don't make a run before halftime and don't show it, I'm not convinced they're going to flip a switch at halftime. But if the energy's there and then Dallas hitting some shots early and Clips are down 10, I would not write LA off. But if they fall down and they're down by margin, that team's not digging deep to come back. I'm with you on that. Conceptually, just the point for each other is what I disagree with.
It's interesting because they both have around the same amount experience-wise for both these teams, Teddy. I don't think there's an edge one way or the other. Both of these teams, if they play to the level, I think we all agree Dallas is the better team, right? At home at this point?
Without Kawhi, yes.
Yes, right. Without Kawhi, which is, of course, the great equalizer here. In the chat room, we are seeing a whole lot of correlation here, RC, between Harden props and a Clipper cover. Same thing with Kyrie, who it's amazing to me how good he has been. And everyone keeps talking about Paul George and Harden and everybody else. Nobody talks about Kyrie, and yet he is single-handedly an absolute monster in this series. And if they do win tonight, moving forward, that's a dangerous combo here. But I definitely think if you're looking for the Clippers to cover and or win, there's probably a correlation to any of the props involving Paul George and James Harden.
Yeah, I think like I mentioned earlier, the above the break three is where they're getting some success, and to me, that's just Paul George and James Harden who's shooting those for the most part. So if they're able to get those and shoot more from that range, then yeah, maybe the over props for Paul George and James Harden might be the way to go. But I think the Mavs have been doing a really good job of defending the paint. And I think even the free throw rate, if I'm not mistaken, is somewhere down the middle. So you're not seeing James Harden get to the line as much. I think they're just really doing a really good job of help defense and all that stuff. And now one thing that you mentioned about Kyrie, I tweeted, it might have been like 2 days ago, but I tweeted Kyrie might be the perfect teammate for Luka. One of the things that I saw,
so true.
not only on the court for Kyrie, what he's done on the court, but when Luka does something stupid, and he's still young. I mean, Luka has been around for years, but he's still a young guy that's have a lot of pressure on him to play really well. There are situations where Luka did some dumb stuff, shot ugly threes, unnecessary threes, turnovers, didn't go back on defense because he thought he got fouled. Walking back to the huddle, to the bench, you could see Kyrie, that they would clip over to him. You could see Kyrie like pointing to his chest, like, you're smart, or like, you got to be better than that. You're smarter than that. Like, I don't think Luka would actually respect anybody, not that many other people other than Kyrie, because Kyrie has been able to he has the experience. He knows how good Kyrie is. And Kyrie also, from a psychological perspective, he puts a lot of I don't know how to say it. I feel like Kyrie's the better player than Luka, in my opinion. Like, he's cleaner, he's more focused, but he gives that support to Luka like he's the number one guy on this team, right? But when I'm watching these games, I feel like Kyrie is the one that his head is in the game. He's the one that's really been that guy to bring them back from when they were down, 30 points that game? They relied on Kyrie, not Luka, right? So I think he's done so well with managing Luka as a player in this series, and I think that's going to go really far as they go through the playoffs.
It's a fascinating journey for him, isn't he, Tate? Because he couldn't wait to get the hell away from LeBron when they were in Cleveland and won. And now all of a sudden, I mean, it wasn't great, obviously, in Brooklyn. But, I think he's onto something here. There seems to be, and who'd have thunk it here, perception reality with Kyrie, kind of a calming force for Luka here. This might be a great marriage that could, who knows, could go toe-to-toe here with a couple of teams that are going to also get ready to start playing this weekend in Game 1 between Minnesota and Denver. Have you been impressed with Kyrie, with what you've seen and what he's done for Dallas here so far?
Look, Dallas is live to come out of the West. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not this is if you've been paying attention to what's been going on, and really for the Mavs, it started at the All-Star break. When they picked up PJ Washington, when they picked up Daniel Gafford, that was the turning point for this team, at least for this year. Is he a perfect teammate? I don't know who a perfect teammate is. He's old now. I mean, where's he played? Yeah. Cleveland, Boston, Crazy. Brooklyn, and now here in Dallas. 32 years. The funny thing that you were talking about how young Luka is. Luka's a 6-year vet, man. I mean, Luka's I know he's 25 years old now, but it's not like he's new to the league. These guys have been around, and in the postseason, having been around, that's an edge. It's a legitimate edge.
Yep. It's amazing to me. I mean, the hardest thing in the world, right, is trying to match up superstars' egos and seeing which works, because it doesn't always work. And it hadn't worked with Kyrie in a number of spots, but does look to be working so far. And unless, of course, they lose the next 2 games, and then we're having a different conversation next week here on them. But there's a lot of questions in the chat room. Luka hurt. Absolutely, yes. He's not 100% for sure, but still, if this was years past, RC, we would have stuck a fork in Dallas. We wouldn't be having a conversation about Dallas being live here in the West if Luka was hurt in years past. So this is the best compliment of players he has had. But we do have a bunch of questions here, Teddy, on if one of these games tonight heads to a Game 7, is there a different handicap for you in a Game 7 when you look at it, or do the same principles apply, or is it just really a crapshoot in a Game 7 with some of these teams?
So Game 7, from a total standpoint, I only want unders.
Yep.
And although round 1, it's not as strong. Another Ralph Michaels chart. Yeah. And again, this is one chart you got to pay attention to.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
From round 2 on. All right. Since 2003, add these up, 24 unders, 9 overs in Game 7s. That's a significant sample size, and it's meaningful. That's the number one thing for Game 7s we talk about is don't bet the over. But round 1 hasn't been the best to be fading, to be playing under. Yeah. That's better as the series progresses.
That's fascinating, that chart, RC, is it not? I mean, because we used to be always just, blind, don't Game 7, bet the under. 50-50 in round 1 is interesting. I mean, obviously, the more rounds you go, the better the level of competition, you would think. But my goodness, talk about a coin flip in any Game 7 that we may have. And again, we might not have a Game 7 here with these two teams if Cleveland and Dallas handle business here tonight. But that's an interesting chart. It's not one that I would have thought. I just automatically would have bet the under. It's a little that's interesting early on in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was actually just looking at that too when you guys bring it up. The other piece from a side perspective, I was looking at home teams, round 1, Game 7, 23-7 straight up since 2002. That goes really far back. But from a spread perspective, it goes down to 17-13. And if you look at the more recent years, so I'll bring it back down to, let's say, season equals, let's say 20 since 2015 or so, because there's not a big sample size or whatever. But from a side perspective, if we go from 2015, it is 8-2 straight up, 4-6 against the spread. So these home teams in Game 7 in round 1 are winning, but they're not covering these spreads. And the numbers aren't, they're not that far. all right, we're seeing no line greater than 6.5. So,
Wow.
I mean, there's even teams not covering a 1.5 here, like a 1.5. So losing exactly by, one or whatever it might be. So I don't know. This is obviously these are trends, but like we talked about earlier, you got to bring up, the current matchup itself, the stats and how they've been playing. But historical says home teams get the win, but maybe not the cover in game 7.
Teddy, what are you giving? What did you end up with as far as home court advantage here? 2 points, 2.5. What are you giving them in the playoffs at this point?
So I had a big debate about that, and I stuck with my regular season 1.5 points. And the markets are giving more. The markets are at least 2.5. I mean, shit. We saw, pardon my language, but we saw Cleveland laying 4.5. And then now we've seen Orlando laying 4, an 8.5 point move, based on the one court to the other.
Yep.
I'm making a 3-point move from one court to the other. But when we look at these two, let's just call it potential game 7s. You think Orlando can win in Cleveland in game 7? I don't know they can.
Yeah.
You think Dallas can win in LA in game 7? I think they can. So there you go. And again, just initial leans. Let's see how it plays out tonight. But if I think about the 2 game 7s, if I'm taking a road team, it's much more likely to be Dallas. But I already have Dallas to win the series, so I don't know that I would necessarily make that bet because I'm already down on it. But maybe.
All right. We got a few questions in there, and guys, and thumbs up if you could there. Those of you joining us, hit that follow button on Instagram. We certainly appreciate you guys hanging with us here as we could very well have 1 or 2 or none, actually, game 7s coming up in round 1. Everyone else seems to have, figured out the where they're heading and whose season is over. And we do have a few questions on leaning one way or the other for this upcoming series. And a lot of eyeballs here on Minnesota and Denver here. RC, looking ahead here at these 2 teams here, do you have a feeling one way or the other with these 2 West Coast behemoths here, the champs versus Ant, who everyone apparently is anointed the best in the NBA now, apparently. It's interesting.
This is going to be a good series, in my opinion. I think it's going to be, obviously, I think Jokic is still one of the best players in the world. So, as long as he's on the court and healthy, Denver always has a chance. I think we talked about it before, but I feel like Denver's team this year is not as great as last year's team, right? They still took a step down, in my opinion, as far as like depth and all that, because their guys on the bench are a little bit younger than what we saw last year. And then, obviously Minnesota. I was really high on Minnesota last year. I was a year ahead. I was just a year ahead. I think they're a great team. I think they put a lot of things together. This season they look more put together. Defensively, I think this is going to be a really good matchup as well. I think might be a good instance for taking early games under, like the first couple games under before they start to adjust the numbers. Kind of like what we saw here in the first round. A lot of these first few games went under by a huge margin, and then the total went. I mean, if you look at some of the totals, you saw some open up at 228 in game 1, down to like 208 in game 4 or something like that. So I think that's something that we could probably take advantage of here. I think this is going to be another strong defensive matchup between 2 really strong teams, in my opinion. So maybe that'd be initially first look would be look towards the under in that one.
We saw Teddy 5s. Now we're seeing 4.5s when it first opened up here. Back to the question of, do you give any more credence to Denver having a bigger edge being in Denver at this point in the season? It's always been one of the better home court advantages, or it's a wash at this particular point.
It's a non-factor. I mean, not a non-factor. Denver gets their home court edge. These 2 teams played opening round series last year, and while the Nuggets won it in 5, Minnesota gave them a battle. They gave them a they got smacked around in game 1, and the remaining 4 games in that series were all competitive. They were plus 10 at Denver, game 5 of that series, and covered that wire to wire and hung tough and had a chance to send it back to Minneapolis for game 6. But the Nuggets are no shoo-in. And certainly when you look at the series price is telling us that Denver's no shoo-in. Knicks, bigger favorites over the Pacers, and the Nuggets are over the T-Wolves. I'm looking at that WagerTalk live odds screen, free, a live odds screen. And that, I think Minnesota's live. You think Minnesota's live. This feels like a 7-game series to me.
Yes.
If it goes that far. T-Wolves in 6, that's my call.
All right, before we get RC, we got a whole WNBA question coming your way. But Teddy, Money in the chat wants to know who do you think the big public favorite is going to be in these two series here with Timberwolves, Nuggets, and Knicks and the Pacers? What do you think early indicators are here? Where's the public going to run to, you think?
I don't think I don't see either of these series having a huge public favorite initially. I really don't. I could be wrong. But the Knicks aren't going to attract a ton of betting attention. None of them are. I don't see either. I don't see it. Maybe something will come, but at this stage, I really don't. I haven't seen anything that says the public loves this side, the public loves that side, and I don't smell it. It's not like
right.
It's a lot of times with this stuff, it's not any consensus numbers I'm looking. You can feel it around town. You can smell it. I'm not seeing it for these series. I'm really not.
Not seeing a whole lot of public love one way or the other. I do find that total interesting, though, with the Knicks and Pacers 217 here. Is it fair to say, Teddy, that the Knicks might provide a little more resistance defensively than what the Pacers had to deal with in Milwaukee? Is it fair to give the Knicks defense maybe a little bit more credit here? Because this feels like a big number here.
It does. So, full disclosure, I had a 5% big ticket play on the Knicks under last night. It couldn't have been more wrong. Lost by 30 points. So the Knicks played with pace, and they're raining threes. And when you're playing with pace and raining threes, although I can't imagine Coach Tibbs is going to want to play with pace against Indiana. I think that, that's the way the Pacers prefer to play. So I wouldn't expect that from the Knicks in series number 2, but stranger things have happened, and let's see if we can get a feel for the quotes and what the Knicks are going to try to do in this series. But certainly one would anticipate, having watched these two teams all year, Indiana wants to play with pace, the Knicks not so much, despite what we saw last night.
Yeah, and one of the rated threes. RC, whoever controls pace is going to win that series. Were you impressed with are the Knicks a player here out of the East, outside of Boston, obviously, who had a nice intramural game there against Miami for a couple of days? That was nice. But what do you think here? Are the Knicks high on your list here as a team that they could barrel their way through here?
Yeah, I think they're live to win the series. Obviously, I think they're a good team, but they're coming off a really physical battle against the Sixers, and I feel like the Pacers had a really easy route. So I think from a health perspective, or even just like fatigue perspective, I think Pacers have an edge there. Other thing too to mention is I feel like they're so reliant on Brunson to really lead this team. As a whole, obviously the role players are doing their job, right? DiVincenzo was hitting his threes yesterday. Defense from Hart and all that stuff, and the clutch three from him as well. Those guys need to really step up all together. But I think the Pacers, obviously, Hallie is a guy that leads this team. But the great thing about him is he trusts his teammates, and his teammates get the job done. If their role players continue to play well, I think this might be a series where the Pacers might be able to steal the series. In my opinion, like I said, I think physically this battle against the Knicks, against the Sixers, really took out a lot from the Knicks. So I'm not too sure. How many times did Hart and Brunson and all these guys play 48 minutes plus or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, in that OT game, did Josh Hart even come out? I don't think he did. This is things that the longer the season, longer they get through in the playoffs, that fatigue might start to set in. And I know, I mean, from in my opinion, I think Pacers could potentially steal this series.
Lane in the chat room, big, loves it. Dante DiVincenzo, legendary for the Knicks right now, plus 1,100 NBA champs. I'm seeing minus 275 Knicks as the winner of this series, Pacers plus 220. And I'm still seeing, I don't know, Teddy, if you see it differently on the WagerTalk Live odds screen, but I'm seeing Minnesota right around plus 165, 170 as a dog. And that, I'm with you. That feels like it is going 7 games here, people. One way or the other. That feels like a 7-gamer here. Any advice to those maybe looking to get in on these series prices? Have we missed the best of it, Teddy, or is there still time to jump in?
So, 2 things I want to talk about here real quick. I just want to talk about Coach Tibbs and the Knicks.
Yes.
Coach Thibodeau's teams have routinely underachieved in the postseason. All right. Everywhere he's been, his teams have underachieved in the postseason. Why?
Yep.
Well, the thought process that he plays his starters too many minutes in the regular season, and everybody gets worn down. So when Ronald's talking about all the depth concerns that the Knicks have, and again, you look at the average minutes for the Knicks in the series against Indiana: Brunson 44, Hart 46, Anunoby 40. On Anunoby 42. Indiana's got no one above 36. So in my mind, that's definitely a factor in the Pacers' favor. You were what was the other question? There was something else that you asked that I wanted to respond to, Joe. You remember?
No, just the any of the series prices. Has the ship sailed yet coming up, or is there there's still an opportunity to come in?
Huge point. When you're betting a series price, you're actually betting on that team in their next game. Note that. All right? Yep. So if you want to bet the Nuggets to win the series, and you bet them before game 1, you're betting on Denver to win game 1. Because the series prices adjust after every single game. So the time where you want to make your series bet is when you're getting the best of the number with the team that you want to support. All right? If you think T-Wolves win game 1, you put your money on Minnesota before the series starts. If you think they lose game 1, then you come back with the T-Wolves, the adjusted price, after game 1. Same story with Knicks and Sixers. Any bet on the series that you make is, in reality, not just a bet on the series, it's also a bet on the team you're backing in the next game, because that's the price you're locking in on, and you can lock in at a better price if they lose that next game. So that's the handicap. Yeah, you want to say who's going to win the series, but when you make your bet, you want to make your bet saying, I expect this team to win this next game. Don't know yet what I'm going to do with Minnesota-Denver game 1. Haven't really looked at it. Don't know yet what I'm going to do with Indiana-New York game 1. Haven't really looked at it in depth, in detail. We'll get there.
I love it. Great point there, Teddy. And RC, before you get out of here, tell us what you got locked and loaded over at WagerTalk, and any thought on the Wings fever here. Tell folks what you're doing with WNBA too, as a matter of fact, so you can prep them for what's coming up.
Yeah, as far as like packages, I don't have anything available today. I didn't really like anything in the MLB. NBA, I think I kind of got tucked into taking that first half under, so that might be a play for my client here.
We all did.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was really, really great. Went 3-0, 2-0 in baseball, 1-0 in NBA. So things are going really well here. But like I said, no packages available yet. As far as today, I know the preseason is going on. I don't really bet preseason. But in my opinion, you gotta fade the hype right now, and then obviously Caitlin Clark with the fever, their numbers are going to be exaggerated. You might even want, if you want to look at like future wins, futures or whatever, maybe a look towards the under and the fever. Obviously they have a bright future. They got Boston, they got Clark. Their inside outside game is going to be nice, but I'm not sure they put everything together here. The league has really gotten, I mean, the way that the rosters have been put together this season, I think the parity within the league is going to be pretty tight. The Storm is going to have one of the best starting fives in the league. at this point. I mean, their bench might struggle, but if obviously the teams in WNBA, they play 8 less minutes per game. So you can have the starting lineup in for a higher percentage of the game. So in my opinion, I think the Storm are one of the top teams. I think it relies, I mean, if Gabby Williams comes back, this might be a team to really bet on. But it's really something, you got to see how that roster comes together. Still no news on that, I don't think. And but yeah, Fever, I would fade them early. Wait till they get things together, and then maybe back them towards the latter part of the season.
Teddy, there is a rumor swirling in the chat rooms here that you have a scheduled interview as the Lakers' new head coach. Is there any truth to this whatsoever? Since Darvin Ham, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. Like it's going to matter with the Lakers. That's the funny part, is if the coach is going to make a difference one way or the other. What do you got rolling here tonight heading into the weekend, Teddy?
So I'm not at liberty to say if I'm interviewing for the position just yet, but I'll let you know. And I'll say this: if the Lakers offer me the head coaching job, I'll take it. As long as my agent can give us, it's a good gig.
It's an easy gig.
We're at the very beginning of the interview process right here. So, very beginning. God, I'm so glad I don't have to apply for jobs anymore. That was the worst, dude. Never liked applying for jobs. That being said, I got a job now. It's a sports handicapper. You can get all my stuff for tonight. And look, it's been good. All right. I'm not one to blow smoke. It's been really good. I'm 76-41, 65% across sports over the last 7 weeks, 8-1 the last 9 in the NBA, 107-72, 60% since November, and up more than 223 units since 2022. 58% every play, every day for the last 2+ years. So anyhow, get on board tonight. WT.buzz/TC. Don't get on board tonight because you already have the play. I gave you Cleveland. I took Cleveland plus the points. But we got a great deal. And this is a really good deal, genuinely a good deal. The MLB's been really good too, 31-17, plus 30, I forget how many, 39 units for the last 49 plays or something, whatever it is. The MLB's been good. MLB through the All-Star break, you get my NBA for free for the rest of the year. So it's a deal and a half. Check it out right now, WT.buzz/TC.
We've got, listen, you got a few people, Teddy, when you do actually announce that you get the gig, a lot of people applying for the assistant job here. Cheshire Cat all over that. John Finley says, who you kidding, Teddy? They already hired your ass. You know it. We know it. It's in there. I think RC and I, we got no problem. We'll hang out in the Lakers, but you also have to be willing to draft Bronny and play him next year. So good luck with that.
Okay.
Teddy,
no problem.
I'm good. I'll cash the check. I am good. No problem. Easy enough there. Guys, we certainly do appreciate it. As always, make sure you hit that thumbs up here. Like us on the way out. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to us here at WagerTalk TV. And of course, don't forget tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern time, last call, another edition. Plenty to talk about. UFC 301, not to mention a full slate of Major League Baseball. And of course, at least one NBA game that we'll be breaking down. There might be a game 7 or 2 coming up. But either way, we appreciate you guys. As always, best of luck with the plays here tonight. And if it's more best bets you're looking for and more game previews, just click on that video on your screen right now. Enjoy the weekend, guys. We'll talk to you again soon. Best of luck. We'll see you.